I'm so excited for all of you that will be receiving certificates here today. It's really going to be a celebration because hard work truly does pay off. So just briefly, today's program, we're going to start off obviously now with the welcoming, and we will be hearing from our guest speaker, Nick Dreyer, at 9:25. You can all refer to the program on the screen. Our awards procession will formally start at 9:45, and then just after 10 o'clock, we will be closing up today's proceedings. Now, just before we formally get started, just a little bit of housekeeping that I'd like to share with you. Okay, so first and foremost, we do ask, can you please switch your cameras on? We'd love to see who's in the room, to see your faces, to see how excited you are to be getting your certificates today. And then we'd also like to remind you to upload the Zoom background, the Young Minds Zoom background. The link was shared in the chat, takes you to a file. And just briefly, if you're unsure how to load your Zoom background, all you do is you go into the bottom corner of your Zoom screen. There's a little button that says stop video. And next to that, there's a little up arrow. If you click on that, it gives you the option to upload a virtual background. So when you do that, a screen pops up. On the right-hand side, you should see a little bit of a plus sign. If you click on that, it will then give you the option to go and select the file where you saved your image. If you just downloaded it, it most likely is just in your downloads folder. So go and simply select that image. It should show up in the preview and voila, you're done. You should be able to have your Young Minds background showing. And if you're having any problems with that, just pop a note in the chat and one of the USB Ed team will surely assist you to get your background up and running. I'd also just like to please remind everyone to remain muted during the course of the procession. But of course, when we come to the point where we're awarding certificates, we definitely encourage you, unmute, go wild, cheer, scream, clap, do whatever feels natural. This is a celebration and we'd really like to hear those shouts and screams of joy. So in that thought of this being a great celebration, we also lastly just want to really encourage you to share today's proceedings on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, go wild. They're all there on the screen, and the team will also be sharing the hashtags and handles. Remember to tag USB Ed in your tweets. Okay, so without further ado, let's get going. I would like to introduce USB Ed's CEO, Dr. 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁. Chris is definitely one of the Young Minds program's biggest fans, as I'm sure you're about to hear. And so I would just like to hand over Chris to say a few words.
Thanks very much, Melvi. Good morning, everybody. That's absolutely 100%. I'm very passionate about the Young Minds program, always have been. I'm quite envious of the fact that those of you that have done it have actually been through it. It's something that I think everybody should have an opportunity to go through. If you don't mind, what I'd like to do is just quickly, by way of congratulating you, just share a little personal anecdote. And I'm kind of hoping that the parents in the room and guardians and sponsors and other people that care for you that have joined us, this will resonate with you, because if you are anywhere near my age, you look back and kind of think about all the opportunities that people that are sitting in this room have going forward. And for me, the anecdote is that I spent in the earlier part of my career about 20 years away from South Africa, working overseas. I was taken there by a combination of wanting to study overseas briefly, and then also doing a couple of projects which were fantastic because they were highly energized and very well paid, more importantly, I think, for me at that stage. And while I was there, I encountered a university environment for the first time. And I moved from a very well-paid job to a very poorly paid job as a lecturer at a school of management. But it was a high-paid job that I was finding tedious and frankly boring. And I moved to a low-paying job where I was surrounded by people, both students and lecturers, who were just constantly, literally every day for me was about learning something else. And I always said that if I got bored in my job, I would move, because and I'm sure lots of us are like that, but for me it was particularly a problem. I would start becoming a nuisance to people around me if I was getting bored with what I was doing. So learning was important. The other thing that happened to me, which is now not so cool because of the situation with our climate change and the environment, is that as it happened during that phase, I traveled an awful lot, and I kind of stopped counting when I got to about 40 countries that I had traveled to and worked in. But the great thing about the traveling was also the learning. So partly about the cultures that we were working in, but also about how people did business in those cultures and how leaders operated. It was absolutely just the most privileged situation to be in, because I was exposed to all these incredible people, the top teams of all these different companies in what places I thought were very exotic. And so I think that for me, that was really very important. Then I came back to South Africa, and it was great for me because I was back close to family, close to old school friends and university friends and so on, and I could re-engage with the people around me, and was thoroughly spoilt by the surroundings that we all know and love. So that was pretty amazing. But I was also challenged by a couple of people who said, what on earth are you thinking? Why would you come back to this environment when there's so many negative things going on and so many things that you can think of as being bad? And I think of all of you and what you are facing going forward, and some of the choices that people will try and force you to make. So if we think about something academically, then, do we use evidence or intuition to make decisions, for example? How do we know that we're doing the right thing? What's the sort of ethical requirement? I think a great question is, are you a net producer or a net consumer to society? So is it the case that over your lifetime, if you look back and measure your career and the projects that you've undertaken, will you have created more than you consumed, or the other way around? And then a really big thing always was this thing about, do you see the glass as half full or half empty? Are you an optimist or a pessimist? Now, some of those choices are false choices, and I hope Young Minds has taught you that it's never quite so one way or the other. It's not quite so binary. Often you have to recognize that it can be one thing and the other thing, and sometimes it's objectively like that, if there is such a thing. And sometimes it's just a question of perspective. So who you are, what your background is, and what context you're in will determine whether things should go one way or the other. But then it kind of occurred to me that in SA, and I'm in a very privileged situation because of the job that I do. I'm constantly meeting chief executives of different companies, and you're going to hear from Nick a little bit later, and I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but you'll see exactly what I mean when you hear from him. Is that you meet people who are just as amazing as, in my case, as anybody that I've ever met overseas. And I try to sort of pick out what were the themes that distinguished them. Yesterday at the business school, we had a session for the alumni of the year for 2019 and 2020. And one of the alumnus of the year was 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁, who's the chief executive of Capitec. And if you know the Capitec story, it is absolutely incredible. They have 17 million users and the company is 20 years old. It is quite remarkable. And I was listening to him and listening to other colleagues that were present there, and just thinking, so what are the themes that run through these incredible leaders? Well, for one thing, they're always learning. They recognize that the moment you stop learning is the moment you stop being able to change. And since everything's changing around you, your ability to change is quite important. They actively manage risk, so they're not reckless, but they do draw a line, and the line is about doing the right thing. And by that I mean they are ethical. They have a moral compass, which is very important. And by the way, your moral compass is most tested when nobody's looking and you have a choice to make. They are pretty much all net producers. My view is that they're always creating things. And again, I refer you to Nick a little bit later here. You'll see people that are net producers are creating things. And then for the most part, they are glass half full. So they're not reckless, but they're glass half full. So as I said, by way of congratulations to you, just these 4 things: keep learning, be a net producer, do the right thing, and look for the positive, not only in the situation, but in the people around you. And once again, my warmest congratulations. Thanks, Melby.
Thanks so much, Chris, for those words. Yeah, and I really just want to latch on to what you said about continuous learning, because I think, you know, this has been an amazing learning journey for the students, but it's certainly not going to be the last one. So thank you for that. So next, I would like to introduce our guest speaker, which Chris has alluded to, Nick Dreyer. So Nick is, of course, a passionate advocate for local brands and local manufacturing, and he simply embodies entrepreneurship, and hence the reason that we have him here today for the ceremony, which is, of course, is a culmination of a program that is about discovering oneself, about expanding your knowledge about business, and about igniting a passion for entrepreneurship. So briefly, some points that I'd like to highlight from Nick's CV before he starts is that, of course, Nick is the CEO and co-founder of 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁, which is, of course, this iconic South African brand taking the world by storm, being worn by Prince Harry, Ashton Kutcher, and of course, our very own South African Olympic team, to mention just a few. Nick matriculated in Pretoria, Boys High, and then he pursued a career in the hospitality industry. And that was, of course, after obtaining a national diploma at Cape Peninsula University of Technology. And the next 17 years he spent in a variety of different roles, including being the general manager of the world-class Element House in Bantry Bay, director of Everard Reed, South Africa's oldest commercial art gallery, as well as being the owner of Oriti, a fine art advisory firm that provides specialized services to a number of different markets. But that is, of course, just to name a few. And of course, the point here is not to be hearing from me, but rather speaking to the man himself. But first, a short video about the 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁 journey. Folks, we have a short break in the video. I'm sure
this land.
Ilo moya ohlanganise lelizwe. Umphefumulo wami, umphefumulo wethu.
This is the soul of South.
Okay.
Thanks, Nick. If you're ready, I think you can take over the floor.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. Just a quick thumbs up if everyone can hear me. I just want to make sure because it's a little bit crazy in my... Okay, cool. Listen, first and foremost, to you guys for having me. It's such a privilege always to just tell our story, and we're grateful for any platform and every audience. And then I feel tremendously privileged to be talking to students because this is the future of South Africa, and this is the future of commerce, and this is the future of business. And it's a rare opportunity to address young people and folks that are moving into the world. So I take it very seriously, and I'm deeply grateful. I actually gave some thought to what I wanted to say today. One of the great advantages of our story is that it's so easy to tell. So I don't often have to prepare for a speech, but I felt that today was different because I wanted to try and impart some of my learnings that I've had. And the first learning I had was, and it shook me now when you read out my CV, is that guy sounds so different to the guy that I am at the moment. Everything in life prepares you in some way. But it's so often that it's just absolutely not the path that you set out to take that is the one that you follow, and I'll address that shortly. But I wanted to just, under the heading of principles for my chat with you today, just highlight three basic principles. The first principle is that you have to be open to chance. When opportunity strikes, you have to be able to go at it really quickly. And that'll make sense when I tell you about how we thought of 𝗿𝗁𝗏 on the very first day. The second principle is sometimes it just hasn't been done before. And that and when it comes to moments like that, often you don't have a benchmark business to look at. So sometimes you need to accept that what you're doing is for the very first time. And then the last is my favorite, which is naivety is power. Your skill set certainly does not need to align with what you want to achieve. And I believe genuinely, and I can tell you I'm surrounded right now by an office full of people whose skill sets certainly are not the ones you'd necessarily hire to run a fashion brand. So let's start the story. Where did this begin? And we'll deal with principle number one first. Be open to chance. So I was an art advisor with a firm called 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏, which was my first foray into entrepreneurship post a semi-corporate existence. And I love how you described it, because 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗏 gave buying advice to wealthy, high net worth individuals globally based out of the Isle of Man. And it did this with absolute failure because it never managed to get one customer. So it didn't even fail more than it didn't manage to start. But I had a go, and I ran it for 8 or 9 months with huge passion, but I never managed to process an invoice. So this conversation starts between myself and my mate, Ross Zonda, who's a school friend of mine. And I'm driving from Plettenberg Bay, which is a 6-hour drive to Cape Town. And Ross is a builder at this point. And he's let's call him a property developer at best, maybe a bucky builder at worst. But a dear friend of mine and a trusted confidant. And we were driving, and I was having this conversation with him. And we were moaning about the South African Olympic team at the Olympics in Rio. And we were saying that, wouldn't it have been nice if they'd been wearing something that was a little bit more representative of South Africa? Something that wasn't like this baggy tracksuit that they were wearing and didn't fit. And then an argument, which is normally between myself and Ross, how good things begin, is a good old argument broke out. And we said, what should they have been wearing? And I think if I went around the room now and asked this entire group, what should they have been wearing? One of the last things you'd probably have settled on would be a 𝗿𝗁𝗏 5-6 years ago. And the reason is because 𝗿𝗁𝗏s are just generally uncool. And they're just the most boring thing in the world, but somehow everybody knew about them. And 𝗿𝗁𝗏 had a couple of things going for it as a concept at this point, not as a brand or a business, is that 𝗿𝗁𝗏 were renowned for being really well made, and that they were super, super like strong construction. And secondly, that they were deeply comfortable. If somebody had a pair of 𝗿𝗁𝗏, they had them for like 20 years. So we thought that, like, what happens if you made 𝗿𝗁𝗏 cool? And in the same car journey, we found a youngster that was working for us, and we asked him to Photoshop a pair of shoes that he found on Google Images and put the laces in yellow and the soles in yellow. And then he was like, what colors should we use? So we said, by chance, he said, use the colors of the South African flag. And on WhatsApp, I don't know if you've ever seen images on WhatsApp, but when you scroll through them, it goes from one image to the next. And when I saw one picture of a 𝗿𝗁𝗏 with yellow soles and yellow laces, followed by red soles and red laces, bang, it hit like an absolute cannonball into the car, and our entire world changed. All of a sudden, we saw something that neither of us had any experience in, but we knew that we were looking at a home run. I was in a sort of advisory role in business. Ross was a builder. Neither of us had any clue what the next steps would be, but we knew that we were onto a good thing. So this is that principle. That's principle about being open to chance. It can happen as quick. The greatest ideas in the world hardly ever come from a boardroom environment with a bunch of people trying to think of the next big thing. It happens by chance. But the second part of that principle is that when it hits, you've got to strike. And that's the second piece of the conversation. That car journey was 6 hours long. By the time I got those WhatsApp images, we had 3 hours left of the car journey. By the time I arrived in Cape Town, 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗁𝗁 Limited was registered, and Ross had already put in the trademark application for 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗁 shoes, which nobody had ever done before. We started that day. Of course, we had to keep it a secret from our wives because they would have killed us at the time. And in fact, they thought we were mad. My wife is a wonderful English girl, Freya. And when I told her that I was starting a 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗁 business, her question to me was, what does a 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗁 do? She didn't even realize that it was a shoe. Anyway, so we ended up, so now Ross and I have got a 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗁𝗁 Limited business, and we've got a fresh idea. And now we have to set out to do this. Now, this comes to the second principle, and my second principle, sometimes it just hasn't been done before. And in our case, it was just a product. 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗁 had never had color in it. And 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗁 had never looked the way that I saw it that day on Instagram. And I had no experience in retail. Ross had no experience in retail. Ross didn't have any experience in digital. To this day, embarrassingly, I don't think I've ever bought anything on the internet other than 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗁. And that was done when I was trying to practice the process, but we set out to learn. And I think this is the critical piece. One, we had no money to invest in this business. All we had was enthusiasm and time. And we had very little time. So we had to use it in the evening. We had to use our time in the evenings. And we've both got kids. So like once you put the kids to bed, once you spend 15, 20 minutes with your wife having a conversation, then we started to get onto Zoom. And just by the way, Ross and I built this business on Zoom 5 years ago before anybody knew what it was. So we had to get going, but we knew that it hadn't been done before. We learned, there you go, it's coming back. We learned how to build social media, and we did the one thing that nobody had really done before. We built a digital footwear brand. And if you don't believe me that we actually built a digital footwear brand, that tagline that you see in the video, the legend, it actually comes from our first tagline, which is the legend is back. And we launched 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗁 online on 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗍 with a tagline, the legend is back. And we sold 350 pairs of shoes, and we had never made one pair. We photoshopped them and we put them up for sale, and we sold 350 shoes on the basis that we were this huge company and that we were back. And everybody bought the shoes, and we immediately panicked because we still didn't know how to make a pair of shoes. We still didn't know how to deliver a pair of shoes. We didn't know how to do any of that stuff. So at that point, we decided the best thing to do, Chris, I'm so pleased you talked about values and ethics beforehand, because I'm going to touch on it later. What do you do when you're in trouble? You're honest, and you don't try and cover it up in any way, shape, or form. So we phoned every single customer and told them exactly what we've done. And you know what they all did? They said, good for you. Go out and make the shoes, and we'll take delivery of those shoes whenever you're ready. And we didn't get one return. We didn't get one person asking for their money back. South Africa believed in us. And we went off and we set out to go and try and create a footwear business. So that's now about 5 years ago. The next thing you do is you build this thing, and we get a couple of shoes, and immediately we catch the attention of South Africa, and we also caught the attention of some investors. We caught the attention of a company called Long for Life, which is Brian Joffe's business. He started BidVest, and he gives us some money to scale our business, which we then do, and we have to get serious. We have to learn how to do retail. And it's at this point where the third principle comes in, that naivety is a superpower. Your skills do not need to align to what you want to achieve in life, because I was not a retailer, nor was Ross. So what did we do? We got help, and we couldn't really afford help, but we asked for help. So we got our team in, we started slowly but surely building a thing. And again, back to the values and ethics, we spoke to our retail partners and we said, please don't order enough for 500 stores. We're not there yet. We need to learn. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to start really small. And our first retailers offered us 150 stores nationwide. We asked them to only put us into 3 so that we could learn how to do it properly. So once you've learned how to do it properly, then you can get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden, you start to scale the business. A couple of crazy things happen on the way. We go to America because we're naive enough and we're brazen enough to go and build a business in the UK and in the US. And we go and meet these folks in the US, this lovely family called the Watts family. We come back, they do their due diligence on us because they want to do 𝗿𝗁𝗃 in the US. And I get a phone call to say, Nick, you don't know this, but our partners in our other businesses, we had to do a due diligence with them. Their names are 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗃 and Mark Cuban. I was like, what about them? No, they would like to make an investment in 𝗿𝗁𝗃 in the USA. Now, when you hear something like that for the first time, it's a little bit like hearing that Jennifer Aniston wants to invest in a 𝗿𝗂𝗿𝗁𝗃 company. It's like, it's a pretty strange thing to hear. But of course, your mind is blown. So we fly off to America, Ross and I, having never done a global deal in our entire lives before. All we had was each other, and we had a little bit of energy. And of course, we had a listed company invested in our business in South Africa. And then we had 2 billionaires in America with lawyers that didn't want to talk to each other. So we go down this road as entrepreneurs, again, not having a clue what to do. And we try and broker this deal. And it's a very long story. And one day you can read about it when we one day get down to publishing a book or something. But there came a moment where we lost the deal. And there was a moment where I was in an Airbnb with Ross at 10:30 at night, and we genuinely believed that we'd lost this deal. And I wrote this impassioned email down to my shareholders, and I said, guys, this is a travesty. We have one opportunity in life. We've got to do it. I'm so sad and all the rest of it. And internally, I get guys joke. They call it the notebook email because it's simply the most emotional email of all time. Anyway, so I hit the email, and unbeknownst to me, 1 minute before that, I'd actually got a clause from the American lawyer saying we accept clause 12.3 and we have a deal. Needless to say, I didn't go to bed until the next afternoon. It was a pretty fun day. So we then have this moment where 𝗿𝗁𝗃 becomes this business and this brand, and 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗃𝗃 is our shareholder as well as Mark Cuban. Prince Harry's wearing our shoes, and we've got this huge amount of energy. Then another thing that's really interesting and important to know happens. It's expect the unexpected. Chance can strike at any time. COVID hits. We've got 30 staff, we've got beautiful premises, and all of a sudden our revenue just falls off a cliff. So what do? We have to contract. We have to take the medicine. We have to make some difficult decisions, but we stuck to our values and our principles, which is to be honest and to completely be fair and to be direct. So we did that, and we worked with our partners, and we managed to get through it. And in fact, we decided that instead of being localized, we were going to spread. And we may have to spread small, but we were going to spread at speed. We had a team that could build digital content. We had a team that could build digital platforms. So at February 2020, our team, and I'm saying our team specifically because it's got nothing to do with me, four countries globally with shoes on the ground and platforms we were selling. As I sit here today, 2 years and 2 months later, we're in 32 countries globally, with shoes in those countries, with websites in those countries, with Instagram in those countries, Facebook. We've got a Taiwanese Instagram account that I can't understand what's going on there. And I still don't think we've sold a shoe to a South African in Taiwan. Anyway, but that's what happened. So what happened to us is this incredible South African story, and it comes to how I want to conclude, and it's to talk about the two things that I think are the secrets to our success, and it comes down to this full circle moment at the Olympics. Remember, I told you that we came up with this idea about wanting to improve the way that South Africans looked in the world. Now, I need to tell you that this company, this business of ours, and I think I've got the Olympic rings above my left-hand shoulder. This is Jared, by the way. He's our head sales guy. And business doesn't stop because you're selling, because I'm doing speeches, by the way. I'm basically in the way. But we've got the Olympic rings here above our shoes. And guys, there's two things that I want to try and ingrain in your heads. Forget the Mark Cubans, forget the 𝗖𝗿𝗃𝗃𝗃s, forget this silly story about this shoe business. There's two things that you need to know. And Chris, I'm going to thank you again for raising the idea about values. You know, values is what got us through this business. Values is what has grown this business. But what are our values? Our values are very, very simple. Our values are just be completely transparent. Be direct. You don't have to insinuate anything in life. Or sarcasm doesn't work. Just be direct. If you're happy, say it. If you're unhappy, say it. but be direct. Be fair. I promise you, if you consider fairness and always know that you're not the only person in a conversation, there's always somebody on the other side of the table. You need to consider fairness, whether it's with your colleagues, with your boss, with your subordinates, or with critically your suppliers, mostly with your customers. Be fair. And those three things are really easy to tick. Transparency, directness, and fairness. But you know which is our fourth principle, which I think is the hardest one to tick. But if you can tick it, then you've passed the test. The fourth one is to be kind. And the reason you need to be kind is because life doesn't continue if the person at the other side of the table doesn't come back. And so you have to be kind to one another. Those are our values, and they have driven a very successful business. Competitiveness goes without saying. We are going to be the biggest brand ever to come out of South Africa. And you'll notice that in that statement, I'm being direct. That doesn't mean you don't have to be competitive. You can be competitive and you can compete hard, but be direct, be fair, be transparent, and lastly, be kind. And I promise you that is an absolute measure for success, especially in a startup. And then the very last thing that I want to leave you with, because I can go forever, but I need to be cognizant of your time for learning and also for going on holiday. The last thing that I want to talk to you is about South Africa. Okay, so let's park all the bad stuff, right? I don't have to regurgitate it. That's the job of News 24 and EWN. And in fact, now the job of BBC, now that they don't allow us to travel anymore, they can do all of that stuff. I'm not interested. Here's what I'm interested in. I don't know if you've noticed, but 𝗏𝗏𝗏 is in 32 countries globally. We make our shoes in Durban. Now we've also got a flip-flop business. We make them in Durban. So the rule number one about South Africa is we can make great products. We can make great things in South Africa. I don't care who's telling us. I don't know if you've noticed, but Ford Motor Company now makes almost every single Ford range of bakkie globally. And they make it in Pretoria, in Silverton. Guys, there's no doubt that South Africa can make stuff. We can make really great stuff. The second thing is South Africa is filled with talented people. It has more abundance of talent than anywhere else in the world. I promise you. I've seen that a million times over, and I'm going to come back to principle one. Your skills don't necessarily have to align. What we've got in South Africa is the stuff that nobody else has. We've got enthusiasm. We've got absolute drive. We drive harder than anybody because we come from some of the most incredibly strange challenges the world has ever known. But we take it on our chin because I genuinely believe in 1994, the president of our country and the people of this nation put us in the business of miracles. We're in the business of miracles in South Africa. That's just how it is. And it's tough and it's challenging and all the rest of it. But we can easily overcome it because we're great people and we're smart. So there's an abundance of talent here. And the last thing that I want to tell you, and I don't mind if you want to go abroad and do what you want to do. Just remember, be successful for South Africa and be successful where you can in South Africa. Because without South Africa, we just wouldn't even be on this call. South Africa is a special place for business. South Africa is a special place for learners. I have opened 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 in the UK. I've opened 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 in the US. I've opened 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 in Australia. And guys, let me tell you something. There's more opportunity here than in any of those countries. And I don't say that lightly. I say that because I've done it. Now, my parting comment to you guys is that please don't worry about what the future holds without knowing that you know exactly what's going to happen. I'm a semi-failed art dealer. Ross is a very mediocre builder. And we started a footwear business and an apparel business, which is genuinely still relatively laughable. And the bottom line is that it can be done. Please go out there, enjoy a wonderful festive break, apply your minds, but remember that you can achieve absolutely anything. Be fair, be honest, be direct, and be kind. And lastly, if you're going to be friends with me, then you're going to have to be long on South Africa. The last thing I need to say to you is if you're in Cape Town and if you're in Pardon Island, come and see us. Make some time. I told you we went out and got help. People helped us. If you need help, that's why I'm here. nick@𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏com. You can email me directly. If you're in Cape Town, come and see me. We've got to try and build this thing up and we've got to try and be positive about South Africa. And I'm available to all of you. So I'm deeply grateful for the time and I wish you all the best over a blessed festive period, and look after yourselves, stay families happily, and be safe. And that's it. I think did I squeeze it in?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nick, for sharing your inspiring story and the inspiring story of 𝗿𝗏𝗀. I really think that you filled everyone's hearts here with hope for themselves, as well as that for our country. I just loved what you said. I don't want to reiterate again the message, but I really loved, what really hit home for me was that idea of, being true to your values and being transparent. The fact that you went and told your customers, hey guys, we actually just sold you a Photoshop image, and customers were there to support you. So, we don't need to be scared of being transparent and being direct, being fair, and being kind. And I also really just loved, again, highlighting how amazing South Africa is, the amazing opportunities we have here. I think we need to hear this from someone like you, and we need to remind ourselves, and we need to spread the word, because we are smart and awesome and talented down here in the South. So I don't know if you guys all want to unmute your mics. Let's actually give Nick a real round of applause. I feel like
guys,
you really made our day. Thank you so
say hi
much.
to the team as well.
Fantastic. And Young Minds students, you heard Nick's invitation. You can't do it all by yourself. So make use of the extension of such invitations to bounce ideas and learn from people who've had to also learn the hard way. Great. Okay. So
thanks, guys.
Thanks, Nick. So we're going to be moving on to the next part of our program now. But just before we actually move on to the procession, I'd just like to introduce Kevin Henderson, which is the Young Minds Program Director, and just give him an opportunity to say a few words about this amazing program. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you so much, Melvi, and amazing story, Nick. What a story. And I'm so excited and so happy that our Young Minds participants and graduates this morning could hear your story. Such a lot of nuggets that they can take with them. I want to latch onto something that Nick said, right, go closer to the end of his talk, when he was talking about don't be too worried about knowing what the future holds. And I want to link that to a quote by Franklin Roosevelt, who says, we cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. And I think that statement by Roosevelt, or that quote by Roosevelt, underpins the objective of the Young Minds program, which is to teach, guide, and support our young adults in order to find some sense of direction and prepare themselves for the world of study, work, and just life in general. So in order to achieve this, the program intends to focus on a number of developmental areas under, amongst other, personal mastery, business management, and obviously the entrepreneurial thinking. So this aims to enable them to make an appropriate decision regarding their future and to provide them with a contextual awareness of future world of work. But most of all, to begin to develop the necessary agility and flexibility in order to adjust to an ever-changing world. And I think that part resonates a lot with what Nick has been saying to us. It's about being able to not have the world and your life sorted out, but to be able to ride those challenges and making the necessary adjustments in order to be successful in the world. So the program is further underpinned by life coaching, which is supported by some psychometric assessments, and this forms the basis of the coaching process for the Young Mind participants. The success of this program depends largely, obviously, on the qualities of our facilitators. And so at this juncture this morning, we would like to acknowledge our faculty for the critical role that you've played in the lives of our youngsters. I've seen quite a number of faculty online, and I'm rather not going to mention any of the names at the risk of maybe excluding some, but we want to let the faculty know this morning that on behalf of our CEO and the entire USB Ed team, we salute you and we are appreciative of all your efforts under sometimes difficult circumstances, with all of this energy that you have to deal with in your during your facilitation processes. We really, really appreciate you and we salute you. And then at this point, maybe also to the participants, congratulations on your achievement. And I want to emphasize, amidst a lot of difficulty. Some of you know me better by now because over the last 2 weeks or so, you had to spend some time with me as part of your final preparation for graduation today. But I can assure you, even those of you who had to spend some time with me, it was a journey well loved by myself. I really enjoyed it, and I hope that you've equally enjoyed spending some time with me as well. I want to say congratulations and well done. Lastly, I would like to acknowledge the people who anchored this program. First of all, I want to say a great thank you to the program manager, Samantha Abrams, for everything you've been doing, for answering the emails, for dealing with the parents. Thank you so much, Samantha. And then also to our 2 learning process facilitators, 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗺𝗁 and Brett Hamilton. Now, some of you might not know, but these 2 people, Zelda and Brett, were with our participants for the entire journey. And so we are appreciative of their role in making this program an absolute success, and the success that it's going to continue to be. So thank you both, Zelda and Brett, for your hard work. I also think at this point, it might be more appropriate to ask Zelda to address the audience and maybe just to say a few words to our students or participants as well. Thank you, Zelda. Over to you.
Thank you, Kevin. And apologies for the voice is a bit croaky this morning. But I just want to say to all the participants, you are the bright stars today. And it was an absolute pleasure sharing your learning journey with you. I looked forward to every single session we had. I could see your growth in confidence, the way you articulated yourselves during the module learnings, the way you used the life coaching, the business planning of syndicates. That was such a steep learning. And when we listened at the final presentation of the business plans, how it all came together, and you guys did such a superb job in terms of those business plans. And then obviously my personal favorite, the life plan, the self-mastery, the skills, the way you guys self-reflected on every single element in the program. And then it all came together at the end, at the final life plan. I was just so proud to be part of your process, your learning process. And so all the best, all success. You all have bright futures ahead of you. And thank you for the privilege that I had in sharing your learning journey with you. All the best, everyone. And thanks for all the laughs. I just loved our sessions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin and Zelda. And I just also want to say that I have no doubt that the Young Minds students definitely appreciated the support that they received from you, as well as all the other faculty mentioned. Again, it's definitely also not a journey that is walked alone, but definitely benefits from the guidance, experience, and inputs from people such as yourselves. So thank you for that. Okay, so it is now finally time for the much anticipated part of the morning, the actual awards procession. So just want to remind you all again, I mentioned in the housekeeping, feel free here to unmute your mics, to go woohoo, like go crazy for your loved ones and the people that you're excited for, your friends, your family. Light up the chat, share on social media, go wild. You guys have the right to feel proud and feel, you know, amazing in this moment. Congratulations, guys. Class of 2021. This is amazing stuff. Just let that sink in. You guys are done and dusted. Remember that hashtag. Yeah, and I just also want to highlight there, as you guys all saw, top group 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗁 top student, 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗁𝗁 from University. 𝗖𝗲𝗿, how are you feeling? Tell us. Unmute your mic.
I'm very shocked, actually.
No, hard work pays off. Tell us more. Excited? Feeling excited for the future? Fantastic, fantastic. Well, and I've also got a nice surprise for you. You will be receiving a 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁 voucher to add some soul to your festive season. So woohoo, okay. And I also just want to use this opportunity again to say to everybody, thank you. Students, well done. Parents, sponsors, faculty, thank you for making this possible and amazing support. Let's again unmute our mics. Let's cheer, let's clap, let's go crazy. I want to hear the whoos. I want to have to take out my earphones because it's going to make so much noise. Okay, let's go.
Well done, everyone.
Yeah.
Well done, everyone.
Well done, well done. Everybody
Awesome.
is super proud. And again, feel free to share on social media, tell the world about your amazing achievements. Okay, so we're starting to come to the end of today's program, but before we do that, I just want to quickly hand over to USP-Ed's Commercial Director, Trish Koning, for a final word.
Thank you, Melvi. So thank you to all you bright young minds for choosing us as your learning partner. Thank you for creating a wonderful experience this year. We look forward to following your stories of success and growth. And you have absolutely no excuse now, having heard Notebook Nick and how it's done. So there you go. A final thanks to our open enrollment team for all the work behind the scenes. You have been mentioned, but Claire, Kevin, Samantha, Charmaine, Arena helping in the background, and then also to our marketing team for putting off this great event. Thank you. So we look forward to partnering with you again in the future. Your learning journey is not done. You might be sharing the done and dusted hashtag, but your learning journey is not done. So it's time for you to get on your 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗁𝗁 and walk that path. Thank you.
Thanks, Trish. Great message and so true. This is indeed not the end of the learning journey. We heard from Nick earlier and from Chris that, you know, the importance of learning, experiencing, trying again, and keeping at it. So with that in mind, I just thought that I wanted to share one last quote that I read recently, and it's attributed to the actress and singer 𝗖𝗲𝗿𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁 𝗂𝗂. And the quote is as follows: to succeed in life, you need three things: a wishbone, a backbone, and a funny bone. And of course, the wishbone emphasizes the importance of having a goal and something to focus on, to keep you inspired and keep you going, to give you motivation to keep moving forward. So that's really the bone to remind you to have big dreams. So don't be afraid to have big dreams. The second one, the backbone, of course, underlines the importance of mental toughness, being resilient, and seeing things through. And we certainly heard a lot about that from Nick. So have the courage to stand your ground and stretch yourself to attain your goals. This bone is the one that's going to keep you on your feet, especially in the most difficult of times, because there will also be difficult times. And then lastly, the funny bone, that's the one there to remind you to have a sense of humor. You need to be able to laugh at yourself sometimes. Don't take life too seriously. And also, you know, don't be too self-absorbed. It's okay to make mistakes sometimes. It's going to happen to all of us. And it's also okay to be vulnerable on occasion. So the funny bone will help you to stay optimistic and to enjoy what it is that you're doing and to just be in the moment. So with that, I would like to conclude today's proceedings. And again, just on behalf of everyone at USP-Ed, I would like to just remind you that this is not the end of your learning journey. It is in fact just the start. Feel proud of yourselves. Once again, congratulations from all of us on this amazing achievement. And then I'd really like to wish you the very best as you embark upon the next chapter. So again, let's have one final round of applause for everyone and celebrate this amazing occasion. Well done, everybody. Thank you, everyone. Wish you an amazing day further. Take care, be safe, have an amazing break. Lots of love from all of us at USP Ed.